Hey everyone, and welcome back to our super exciting adventure through the Bible. Today we're going to meet some amazing heroes called judges. Now, these aren't the kind of judges you see in a courtroom with a gavel. The judges in the Bible were special leaders God chose to rescue and guide his people, the Israelites, when they got into trouble. It was a bit like a roller coaster ride back then. Sometimes things were great, and sometimes, well, not so great. Let's jump in and meet our first hero. Our first judge is a man named Shamgar. His story is short but super awesome. The Israelites were in a tough spot. Their enemies, the Philistines, were causing all sorts of problems, making it unsafe for people to even walk on the main roads. They had to take secret paths just to get around. But God always has a plan. He chose Shamgar to be a rescuer. Now, you might think a rescuer would need a big army and shiny swords, right? Well, Shamgar had something a little different. He had an Oxgoad. An Oxgoad is basically a long, pointy stick used to guide oxen when they are plowing fields. It's not exactly a weapon of war, but Shamgar, filled with courage and strength from God, faced 600 Philistine soldiers with just that Oxgoad. And guess what? He won. He saved Israel. Shamgar's story is a fantastic reminder that it doesn't matter how big or small you are, or what you have in your hands. When God is with you, you can do amazing things. He can use ordinary people and ordinary things to do extraordinary work. Shamgar's act of bravery brought peace to the land for a while and showed everyone that God's power is bigger than any army. He was a bridge of hope between other judges, making sure Israel didn't fall apart after a time of big battles and a really mixed-up leader named Abimelech. Things in Israel were messy. People needed someone to help them find peace and get back on the right track. And that's when God called our next judge, a man named Tola. Tola wasn't a famous warrior with dramatic battle stories like some of the other judges. His job was different, but just as important. He was a judge of peace. For 23 years, Tola led Israel from his home in a town called Shamgar. Imagine that, 23 years of stability. That's longer than some of you have been alive. During his time as judge, he helped the people solve their arguments fairly and reminded them to follow God's ways. He brought order back to the nation after all the chaos. It was like a big, collective sigh of relief for the whole country. Tola's leadership shows us that being a hero isn't always about fighting big battles. Sometimes, being a hero means being a peacemaker, helping people get along, and leading with wisdom and kindness. He helped restore justice and encouraged everyone to focus on worshiping God. Tola's steady leadership was exactly what Israel needed, a quiet time to heal and grow strong again. After Tola's long and peaceful time as judge, it was time for a new leader. God chose a man named Jair, and just like Tola, Jair was a leader who brought stability and good government to the land. He was a judge for 22 years, almost as long as Tola. Now, Jair was a very influential man. The Bible tells us he had 30 sons, and these weren't just any sons. Each one of them had his own donkey to ride on, which was a big deal back then. Kind of like having a really cool car today. It showed that they were important leaders. And even more amazing, each of his 30 sons was in charge of one of the 30 towns in a region called Gilead. Imagine that, a family of leaders working together to keep things running smoothly. This tells us that Jair was great at organizing things and making sure every town had someone to look after it. The area where they lived even became known as Havoth Jair, which means the towns of Jair, because his family had such a big impact there. Jair's leadership was a blessing to Israel. It was another long period of peace and order. He made sure that justice was done and that people could live their lives safely. Like Tola, his story isn't filled with epic fights, but it's filled with something just as powerful, good, steady leadership. He and his sons helped keep the nation on track, reminding us that leading well in our own communities is a wonderful way to serve God and others. When Jair's life came to an end, he was buried in a place called Canaan, leaving behind a legacy of peace and a well-managed land. So, let's look at the big picture. The time of the judges was a cycle. It went something like this. The Israelites would forget about God and start doing things their own way. Because of this, they'd get into trouble and their enemies would give them a hard time. Then the people would realize their mistake and cry out to God for help. And what would God do? He would send a judge, a rescuer like Shamgar, Tola, or Jair to save them. Shamgar showed them God's power in unexpected ways. He reminds us that with God, one person with a simple tool can make a huge difference. His story is all about courage and faith. Then we have Tola and Jair. Their stories are a little quieter, but so important. They weren't famous for big battles, but they were famous for something else, long periods of peace. For a total of 45 years combined, these two men led Israel with wisdom and helped the nation stay peaceful and organized. They were like the calm after a storm. They showed Israel that following God leads to stability and order. Their leadership highlights the importance of having good, righteous leaders who care about justice and peace. It's not always the loudest person who makes the biggest difference. Sometimes it's the steady, faithful person who works quietly to make things better for everyone around them. Tola and Jair were those kinds of leaders. They restored order, oversaw justice, and provided the stability the nation desperately needed. But even after all this peace, the cycle continued. After Jair died, the Bible tells us the people of Israel once again turned away from God. They started worshiping other false gods and forgot all the wonderful things the real God had done for them. And, just as before, this led them right back into trouble. This pattern teaches us a really important lesson. It's not enough to be rescued once. We have to choose to follow God every single day. The stories of Shamgar, Tola, and Jair show us that God is always faithful to provide a way out when we call on Him. He gives us heroes, peacemakers, and leaders. But it's up to us to listen to them and, most importantly, to keep our hearts focused on God. These judges, whether they were mighty warriors or wise governors, were all part of God's amazing plan to care for His people. They remind us that God can use anyone, a farmer with an Oxgoad, a quiet judge in a small town, or a man with a big family, to do His will. Each of them played a special role in the incredible story of Israel. What an adventure! From a surprise victory with an Oxgoad to decades of peaceful leadership. These judges show us God's amazing and diverse ways of working. I hope their stories inspire you to be a person of courage, peace, and faithfulness in your own life. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into the Bible. See you next time, and God bless.